GCSS-Army, multiple operations, helpful tips and videos, right? So today we're continuing our CMDP series with part 7, and we're starting our general maintenance management operation checks. So this first video is going to be checks 1 through 15. Just want to start off by saying thank you guys for all your support so far with the CMDP series. I've received several emails asking for materials, asking for questions, just to better your all's maintenance programs. And that's what this is all about. So this is checklist B of the CMDP checklist, which is general maintenance management operations, right? So this series or this topic or this checklist can be broken into 3 parts. There's quite a few checks, but just like the previous videos and publications, we're going to pull up the regulations, talk about them, certain things that I would look for if I was inspecting a unit. And then at the end of the full CMDP series, we will do a live CMDP inspection on one of my units. So if you're new to that channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get started. All right. Let me catch it up here. All right, so general maintenance management operations. Okay, like I said, this is part 1. There's going to be a lot of helpful tips. We're going to go through a lot of the regulations and go through what I would look for. So this is just the checklist of what it looks like. Total of 35 checks. Most of these checks are pretty easy, and a lot of this stuff we'll go into detail, but we will get more into detail as we go through the CMDP process. So first check, an officer or civilian equivalent will be appointed in writing as a maintenance officer, right? So this is AR 750-1, paragraph 3-7. So things to verify during the check that I look for is if the person is on appointment orders, is still in the unit, has the commander actually signed the memo, and is the commander currently in command and has assumption of command orders, right? So this is just an example for you guys out there. If you want a copy of this, let me know. But this is your maintenance officer appointment orders, all right? Pretty self-explanatory on this one. So here you go, 3-7. General policies in 750-1 states an officer or civilian equivalent qualified in maintenance management will be appointed as a maintenance officer in writing, okay? And that's at each level of command. All right, so for me, like we have our companies, and then we also have our battalion maintenance officer, right, which is usually our battalion XL, but that's right out of the regulation there. So check 2 is commanders will establish a command maintenance discipline program, right? So this is covered in DAPM 750-1 table 10-2, and also your unit training calendars is what I look for. So you want to try, or I try, anytime I know I'm inspecting a unit, I always put out the admin order, which we covered in a previous video. But the week prior, I have the unit give me their unit training schedule going 3 months back and 3 months ahead. That way I can look and see what they're doing and so forth, right? So things to verify during this check: what does their CMDP look like? Do they actually have a working CMDP program? And the biggest one that I've noticed recently in the Army is, are the commanders invested in their maintenance program? So like I said, if you have a commander that's invested in his or her maintenance program, things are a lot easier. Also, when was the last inspection? Are the records on hand? Is CMDP on the unit training calendar? And then can a unit provide a copy of the training calendar to verify? So when I do a CMDP inspection, I don't take their word for it. If it's not in writing or they don't have records, I'm sorry, but you gotta have records, right? So here's the APM 750-1. This just breaks down pretty much all the CMDP checklists that you are required to check it for. I didn't want to go through all of them in table 10-1. There's a lot of them, but if you do want to reference them, it's the APM 750-1. So here's an example of a DTMS training calendar. All right, so as you can see, you know, they have their services on here, their command maintenance, talking about their focus, all that stuff is right here. So this is one of the things I look for. I look for, make sure the services are on the training schedule. Any low density training, you know, battery training, environmental training, things that are required to be taught, make sure you look at that on the training schedule. And then here's a CMDP policy letter that I drafted when I stood up a field feeding company. So I wanted to make maintenance the cornerstone of the field feeding company, since we or well, they were now, serve for units above echelon, So one thing I wanted to do with the commander was explain to him what his responsibilities were and what all the CNDP monitors' responsibilities were. So if you want a copy of the CNDP policy letter, just let me know. Like I said, it's just basically the purpose, what the CNDP program is, different things that must be established, maintained, how you evaluate, and so forth, right? And how to implement. So just let me know if you want a copy of this. So check 3, CNDP or commanders will appoint CNDP coordinators on orders, right? So this is straight out of DAPAM 750-1, paragraph 10-7E. Things I verify, like I said, appointment orders, commander signed the memo, currently in command, and has the orders, appointment orders been validated, right? So here you go, right out of 10-7. Each commander provide interest and direction to establish an effective CNDP. The CNDP integrates existing resources in the command to avoid redundancy to ensure unity of effort, right? So keep that in mind. Commanders will appoint a CNDP coordinator on orders and ensure they understand their responsibilities and coordination requirements. All right, so CNDP coordinators will schedule formal and informal inspections and staff assistant visits. And this is just an example of appointment orders for CNDP coordinators. All right, so it's pretty self-explanatory. Checks 4 and 5. So 4 and 5, CNDP inspections are conducted annually for corps division, semi-annually for brigade and below, right? And that's DAPAM 750-1, paragraph 10. And then keep the results of the last command maintenance inspection on file, right? Historical records. So we all know about historical records. So it's DAPAM 750-1, paragraph 10-8 again. So things I look for are CNDPs being inspected. The units have signed CNDP past inspections. Does the unit have at least 2 years of past inspections? Okay, so one thing I notice on my level is it's easy for me to inspect at the battalion level, but it seems sometimes brigades do not do their proper intervals when it comes to inspections, right? So as you as the coordinator or you at the unit, it is your responsibility to say, hey, I'm due for a CNDP inspection. We should all want CNDP inspections to know where we stand and what we can improve on our maintenance, right? So just keep that in mind. So like I said, DAPAM 750-1, the CMDP is a day-to-day program conducted by the commanders or the designated representatives, right? Frequency of interval inspection is set as desired. Commanders will conduct a formal inspection of brigade and lower size elements by the parent unit that has training, resources, and authority on a semi-annual basis, okay? Annual inspection for National Guard units or Ready Reserve units, so just keep that in mind. Battalion, brigade level staff, okay? So one thing I like to do, I encourage my units before they have a CNDP inspection, get with their local COMET team. They'll come down and do a courtesy inspection. What is nice about COMET is they'll go through the full inspection with you, tell you where you stand, what you need to fix, but they don't report to anyone. They don't do a roll up or a an outbrief or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. COMET is your friend. Like I said, it just continues. It talks about school trained personnel working in maintenance positions, verified. Okay, we need to look at that. Check 6. Are Army organizations activities performing maintenance operations established and maintain SOP, right? So a few regulations, 750-1, DAPAM 750-1, and then DAPAM 750-3. So things I look for in this is the SOP signed and current. And can the unit walk you through their SP or SOP? So one thing I do, I don't try to go to the motor sergeant or, the shop foreman or the senior mechanic. I want to go to that mechanic. Can you tell me in your SOP how you perform operations or daily taskings, okay? To make sure that you're. So here you go, 750-1, paragraph 3-7, general policies, like we talked about, SOP will be established and maintained by all Army organizations and activities performing maintenance operations. All right. So keep that in mind. We must have a signed SOP and make sure, like, I can't tell you how many times I've inspected units that their SOP is like so out of date, like talking SAMs, no GCSS-Army lingo or anything like that. LIW is gone, it's ASIP. Make sure all that stuff's updated. DAPM 7-1, 1-8, commander leader self for maintenance management competency. So these are just certain things here. You can look these up in the regulation. 750-3, need for standing operating procedure. All units performing maintenance are required to have a maintenance standing or SOP signed by the unit commander, okay? So the maintenance SOP may be annexed to the unit SOP and annexed to the unit's logistic SOP or a standalone document. The purpose of the SOP is to formally describe the way a unit performs maintenance on weapons, vehicles, communication equipment, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear gear, all right, and other individual unit equipment. The unit's maintenance SOP will be written in enough detail to give recently assigned personnel a firm grasp on how maintenance is to be accomplished to the unit. So when we get a few videos down the road, I'm going to show you my 120-day low density training program. So I broke down all of my MOSs, what they train on, and what they train on weekly out of their 10, 20, 30 level manuals. Then also how the section trains. So each week my section trains on chapter 1 of the SOP, chapter 2 of the SOP, so that they get familiar with all that, right? And one thing I did notice when 3-Corps came down, it's a requirement on the CMDP on the 3-Corps side that your operators and maintainers, and especially your dispatchers, need to be trained annually on closing the dispatching loop. So we're going to get into that further down the road, but just keep that in mind. So check 7, the maintenance SOP clearly defines responsibilities and operations and procedures, right? So 750-1 and 750-3. So like I said, things that I look for are all areas covered in the SOP. I spot check random personnel to ensure they know their responsibilities and duties. I look at their SOP. I normally ask a unit to provide a copy through email ahead of the time before schedule, so I can sit down and go through each section and give them any pointers or things that don't make sense or things that should not be in there. And then at the end of the inspection, I'll turn that over to them and I'll say, hey, these are the recommendations on your SOP to make your maintenance program stronger, right? So here you go. Maintenance commander will ensure maintenance SOP provides clear guidance, right? So just keep that in mind. 750-1, 750-3. So believe it or not, everything listed here is required to be in your standard operating procedure, your SOP, all right? So there's a lot of topics you have to hit in your SOP. And this comes into play, especially if you're going for like the AMI. So the AMI, you have to submit your table of contents for your SOP. So just keep that in mind, right? There's a lot of stuff, and here this is continued again. There's a lot of stuff that has to be in your maintenance SOP. So here is an example of an SOP I wrote a little while back on the duties and responsibilities, right? So if you guys want a copy of this annex from my SOP, just hit me up and I'll hook you up. So like I talk about, commanders, your executive officer, what their responsibilities are, your supply NCO, your first sergeant, your motor sergeant, your MCS, your supervisors, your first line leaders, vehicle occupants, maintenance personnel, equipment operators, right? So everybody in your unit has some type and some form of emphasis on maintenance. All right. So it's not just the mechanic's responsibility to maintain equipment from an operator, right? There are 10-level checks that operators should be doing. So keep that in mind. So check 8. So like I said, make maintenance SOP addresses all areas outlined. So you see there's a lot of areas, right? So things I check for are areas covered in the SOP. I look at the table of contents, right? So some of the common areas that I see that are not mentioned are corrosion prevention. I don't know why, but a lot of units do not mention corrosion prevention in their SOP. They have no idea what I'm talking about, right? AOAP. So a lot of units don't have equipment in AOAP and do not mention it, but it is required to be in the SOP. So make sure that's in there. Are correct terms being used, such as GCSS-ARMY, not SAMS, ASIP, not LIW. We want to make sure all the lingo's in there, okay? And then another one is winterization. I can't tell you how many units I inspect that winterization is not in there, right? So every piece of equipment has some type of checks or some type of work package telling you how to winterize the equipment. All right. So for now, during this part of the inspection, I spot check the areas, right? The SOP we use for the full inspection. So we're going to keep going back and forth to it. All right. Like I said, look at the SOP, but ask them to provide you a copy of the SOP. Here you go. This is just telling you in 750-3 field maintenance standard operating procedures, right? Need for a standard operating procedure. And then, like I said, 750-3, these are the areas, once again, that are required to be in your SOP. So general policies, right? Just see an officer equivalent. Like I said, this is just a continuous. If you haven't noticed, 750-1, 750-3, 750-8, you're always working with those regulations, right? So check 9. LAS operators successfully complete the required training in order to operate assigned systems, right? So you're going to have local policies if you're not part of, 3 Corps, but Fort Hood's regulation 350-7, and then certs on file, right? So things I verified during this checks, are they certified? Are personnel trained in GCSS-Army? Are local policies being followed? So like here on Carson, like you may take the IRFs class in 2020, in 2022, you have to take it again, right? So it's things to keep in mind, especially the unit armor. Like when we talk about services, unit armor performs quarterly services on the M4. Well, if they're not armor trained or school trained, they do not perform those services. So you have to push those services to an SMC or so forth, right? So like I said, I verify IRFs, motor sergeants, etc. have the following certs and complete the training. G-Track Wave 1, Wave 2. Local GCSS-Army complete. Your 2875 SARS submitted to GCSS submitted for GCSS access. Appointment orders valid and on file to operate GCSS-Army. So here's an example of 2875 on myself, right? So basically, you need one of these to operate the system. It's I guess it was last May that they found out that this was not being done, and this is the reaffirmation. We're gonna do a full series on how to actually reaffirm roles and stuff like that, but this is required to be on file. And then of course your training certs, right? So all your training certs. So in short training, G-Track training is complete, right? So all documents and GCS access uploaded into the system. So if you go into your personnel file in GRME or Access Admins, they have the approval. They can upload all these to your personnel file. So they're always there. The only thing you have to update is your 2875 or any substitution 2875s that you may have, or when you go to your next unit, right? But I encourage you, right? So all the required documents, any documents, you can upload into GRME, especially with service packets. Like you can scan the whole service packet and you can attach it to that. You can upload it and attach it to that work order. Same thing applies to master driver. So we're struggling all the time creating these stupid packets over and over again. If we put them in the system, they're there, right? There's the system of records, GRME. So if the records are there, then we are good to go. Like I said, if you're not trained, then you shouldn't be operating the system. And then, like I said, if they're not trained, do they have a valid reservation? Are they locked in? Like I know COVID played a crazy part when it came to schooling, and a lot of schools were canceled. I know in Carson, to try to get in some type of GCSS-Army class was nearly impossible. They're starting to get back into the swing of things now, but just keep that in mind. So like I said, things I look for, you need appointment orders too. So if you are appointed, whatever position, you should have appointment orders on that, okay? And if you got multiple UICs, if you're at battalion level and you work with multiple UICs, like we have 6 UICs, your appointment order should have all 6 UICs on them. Check 10. Commanders will ensure contract maintenance is utilized properly when augmenting maintenance requirements. All right, so this is AR 750-1, paragraph 3-7, appendix C. So things I check for is maintenance being augmented, right? So if it's not augmented, I mean, this is simple. It's a no-brainer here. So augmented maintenance. So in appendix C, it pretty much breaks down actually how to do the formulas and calculate the amount of man hours needed and the amount of civilian personnel that may be required to service your equipment. Okay, so I know when one of my units left about a year and a half ago to deployment, we brought in augmentee maintenance. We had 17 mechanics, and we base it off of all of the vehicles they had, the amount of hours it took. So if you look at Appendix C, it'll break down for you how many man hours and how to multiply it and find the exact direct labor man hours you need, okay? So we're going to do another part of this when we get to our man hour series, but for now, this is just the Appendix C. So check 11, commanders will ensure contracting officer representatives are used to monitor. So if you have augmentee maintenance, you should have a contact or a COR. All right, so as appointment on file and as a current. So this is just an example of the appointment order memo for the contracting officer. Check 12, commanders will ensure maintenance managers are registered and have an ASIP access to perform maintenance functions, right? So things I check. Do they have an account? They may tell you have an account, but can they log in during the inspection? I can't tell you how many units I go to say, yo, yeah, I got an ASIP account. I can get on RCOP. I can get here. I can get there. I can pull up MWOs and yada, 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 right? They full of crap. If they can't log in during the inspection, they do not have access. And for me, when I ran a motor pool, I made sure there were multiple people in my unit that was able to have access to the system in case one person went on leave and then got locked out after 30 days later. We were always able to be in the system. And that also goes for your supply sergeants too, right? So I know I can't tell you how many times that the supply sergeant has come to a motor sergeant saying, hey, I need manuals, I need this. They should have their own ASIP account. So keep that in mind too. And most importantly, can they navigate the system? So here's a couple screenshots, on the new enterprise. Like we all know, it just changed. So make sure they know how to get to this, because I have inspected a few units in the past month or two that don't even know how to get to this part of the screen here, right? So make sure they know that LDAC is where most of our stuff is, what we're going to go, right? Can they log in? Can they navigate or tell you, or can you say to them, hey, where do I go to find my TMDE stuff, right? So hopefully they know this and they can navigate this for you. So check 13, commanders will ensure all regulatory requirements are being met if the unit has equipment and administrative storage. So this is 750-1, paragraph 8-11. So things to check, is admin storage being used? Does the SOP cover admin storage? And being used are MFRs filed in the equipment folders, all right? So just keep that in mind. So here you is 750-1 administrative storage, right? So one key takeaway, people think you can just put something in administrative storage. That's not how it works, right? So if you look down here at G, it says before equipment is placed in administrative storage, it must meet the maintenance standard outlined in paragraph 3-2, right? So 1020 standards, so forth, it has to be serviced, all that stuff, right? So when more than 25% of the organization on-hand equipment must be placed in administrative storage, commander will consider initiating action to reorganize the activity at the level equipment authorized to operate and maintain. So if we cannot get augmentee maintenance, a lot of times, and what I do in my battalion is I take whatever rolling stock or generators, heaters, pumps, whatever they're leaving behind, and I look across my other units and I was like, okay, you have these vehicles, so you're going to take care of these vehicles. You're going to take care of these vehicles, right? And a lot of that's easy because with G-Army, you can do a Z loan and just Z loan it to them, all right? So just keep in mind, though, when you were talking about administrative storage, right? It says equipment will not be left in administrative storage for a period exceeding 365 days, right? So that's another big one. And then down here at K, if you look, equipment and administrative storage is accounted for. Reports submitted under 710-3, material condition status reported under 220-1 and 700-38. So material removed from administrative storage. So once you put it in and you take it out, it must be restored to all normal operating procedures, have all MWOs applied, be returned to a normal PMCS schedule using the last type service completed. And this goes for calibration as well, all right? Check 14. Equipment enrolled in the low usage maintenance will meet criteria in accordance with 750-1, paragraph 4-2H. So low usage is kind of going away. We're doing all these non-comp stuff now, which I find it crazy. I'm not trying to get off topic, but I don't know how the Army is struggling with 60-day dispatches. Like, my unit is driving me crazy, my battalion being overdue for 60-day dispatches, right? So we need to make sure that stuff's on the training schedule and there's a plan, all right, with your monthly rollouts and so forth. But we're going to get more into that when we talk about services. So a couple things I look for is low usage being used. Does equipment meet the criteria? And are there low equipment usage memos filed? So 750-1, paragraph 4-2H, right? So there's a bunch of stuff here in this that is pretty cool. Like, I find it really cool. So for example, right, it says non-power driven chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear CBRN equipment anticipated to accumulate fewer than 75 hours of operation in a 12-month period, right? That can go into low usage. 10-inch canvas items, small arms and crew served weapons, machine gun and mortars that are maintained in a high humidity controlled area are not removed for any reason, will be served annually, will be serviced, I'm sorry. So it's pretty cool. All equipment, there's a lot of stuff you can put into low usage. Generators, pumps, heaters, support equipment, all this stuff. It's all right here in 750-1, right? I'm not going to read it all because there's a lot here. So one thing I do want to read is down here in number 9 is units will conduct a 25% validation of equipment usage data in LIS versus equipment actual odometer quarterly. All right, so that is a check. You must conduct 25% validation of equipment usage. All right, and the best way to get after that is it on Monday. Just check it. I mean, it's pretty easy. Validation determines is that the usage data is 20% or more inaccurate. You must do 100%. All right, so keep that in mind. Lastly, check 15. Okay, all equipment will be exercised quarterly. Operators will perform a monthly PMCS per the TM and drive combat vehicles, tactical vehicles, and pool trailers significantly. Minimum of 5 miles to exercise SEALs and ensure mission capability. So this is right out of 750-1, paragraph 4-2. So things I verified during a check. Okay, records present. Is it on the unit training calendar for the monthly rollouts? Right. Does the GCSS-Army have D1 notifications as proof? So I can't tell you how many units I go to. They have all these memorandums and yada, 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 right? But if you know how to get in the system, you can look up headquarters 4, go to the D1 notifications, and you can check for the monthly rollouts. It's pretty easy. All right, so keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to put them on the spot. Our job as CMDP inspectors is to ensure that they're getting the training they need and they understand, okay? And then does the unit close the dispatching loop, right? So spot check dispatches for now, right? So when we do our dispatch dipstick, we're gonna get a lot more into this. But one thing I have noticed is they are not closing out the dispatches, right? So they'll accept the dispatch back, won't have any miles on it, how much fuel consumption they use, and so forth, right? We need that stuff. Another big thing right now with the dispatches is, you know, the training tab and the level of activity, right? So that stuff is required. That is the first part of the general maintenance management operations checks 1 through 15. Like I said, this is going to be a pretty big series. Anytime, like I said, you want any of these materials, just reach out to me and I'll get them to you. So I'll see you in the next video where we go over check 16 through 30. And as always, go Ordnance. Here back with another GCSS-Army maintenance pool operations videos, helpful tips, right? So we're going to continue our series today with the CMDP series on part 8, and this is part 2 of the general maintenance management operation checks 16 through 30. So I hope you had a chance to watch the previous video where we go over the first 15 checks, go over the regulations, give you some pointers, give you some material resources you can use, right? So in this series here, I'm just going to warn you, this part, this is a little lengthy. However, it's going to be some good material. And also, we're going to touch on ARMs, but we're not going to go too far into ARMs. We're going to do a separate class. We're actually going to go into ARMs and actually build files and records and labels and so forth, right? So just want to throw that out there. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. The channel is definitely growing, and I really appreciate it. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll jump into general maintenance management operation checks 16 through 30. right. So like I said, these are checks 16 through 30, okay? So make sure you go back and watch the previous video. So after, well, general maintenance management operation is going to be a 3-part series. So, yeah, pretty lengthy. So let's just start with the check 16 here, okay? Units will validate equipment usage. 750-1, paragraph 4-10. So things I verify during this check is quarterly odometer, miles, hours versus the system of record, right? So one thing to keep in mind, I'm going to show you guys when we actually do our PMCS portion, but I created a little sheet where there's like 7 questions for 10 vehicles. So when I grade or observe their PMCS portion of the CMDP, I go around and have the operators take the sheet and I pick 10 random vehicles. So those 10 random vehicles that I pick, that I'm checking the odometer, mileage, the manufacturer dates, the 5988s, all this stuff, I use through the whole inspection. That's also when I do their service packet review and so forth, right? So keep that in mind. So here's an example of a memorandum. Now, if you want to copy this memorandum, be more than happy to share it with you. Just email me. But this is just saying on 26 August 2019, we conducted 25% of validation of equipment versus the actual odometer reading, right? So you're just going to put your serial number, your model, GCSS mileage, and your odometer. So like we learned in the previous video, if it's 20% more or off, then, hey, you got to do 100%. So here you go, low usage equipment. Like I said, yeah, this is 750-1, paragraph 4-2. Okay, it talks about the usage criteria, the hours, and so forth, right? So 750-1, paragraph 4-2. If you look down here where the big red arrow is, units will conduct a 25% validation of equipment usage data in LIS or GCSS-ARMY versus the equipment actual reading quarterly. If it's 20% off, you must do 100%. So let's talk about check 17. When support is required for local organization commands in a unit using external SOPs, these organizations should request support. So certain things I look for in this check are external SOPs on hand, so forth, the SSA, the SMC, LRC, IMDE, so forth. If there's external organizations they're using, do they have an SOP present, right? Do they understand the procedures? Do they understand the procedures, how a passback memo works? You know, does it go to brigade? Does it go to division and so forth, right? So just keep that in mind. So here's 750-1, paragraph 3-12 and 3-13, where it talked about pretty much, you know, all the external maintenance support facilities, right? Everything that we can use for support, okay? Check 18. Commanders will ensure units coordinated with installation or designated AFSBNs, okay? So AR 700-4, installation AMC logistic assistant representatives. Contact information for the AFSBN and LARS, right? Do the units know how to contact TACOM, CENTCOM, so forth? Do they know how to do that? So one thing is cool that I don't think we take advantage of, if you, especially with like TACOM, CENTCOM, if you need a class or you need help, they will schedule a time where they'll come to your unit and they'll help assist and train. So if you look here, right? So use of logistics assistant personnel, LARS, right? Purpose, provide advice and guidance to the commanders to assist them in attending and sustaining material readiness. Analyze, advise, assist, and train in areas of logistics. Training will be supplement, not replace, okay? So it's not solely the LARS responsibility to train, right? But you can reach out to them and they will give you training in the following areas: functionality, concept, operations, maintenance, supply support, modifications, disposal, so forth. So just keep that in mind. Use your LARS to your advantage. It is an easy way to plan like a LTT, so forth, right? So recently I contacted TACOM. They did a full 4-hour block for me for my transportation company, where they went over basic troubleshooting, basic issues with the EQs and the PLS systems. That it's easy. You just reach out to the LARS and they will assist you. Check 19, quality control must be fully integrated into a maintenance operation, right? So it's the 750-1, paragraph 3-7. So are there appointment orders? And does the SOP clearly define the responsibilities of quality control, right? So quality control QA/QC program, that's like the cornerstone of your maintenance program. Like you may have mechanics doing work, but are they doing quality work? Are they actually doing the inspection? Are they doing it correctly, right? So quality control must be fully integrated, like I said, into maintenance operations, okay? The identification of equipment faults, compliance with repair procedures, equipment standards contained in the TMs and equipment-specific publications. So here's an example of QA/QC procedures in one of the SOPs that I wrote. If you want to copy this, make sure you reach out to me. Like I said, like as usual, I'll give it to you. But basically, right, a sound internal is the key to effective maintenance program. Inspectors are to be appointed in writing. Inspectors will not produce a QA/QC checklist for dispatching. Like I said, you make sure you check with your local regulation or local regulations or policies. Like I said, if you want to copy this, let me know. Check 20, units will conduct controlled exchange and will maintain controlled exchange documents and controlled exchange log in accordance with 25-400-2, right? 750-1, paragraph 4-9. The things to verify, okay? Are all copies of controlled exchanges transactions, are they filed? Can the unit tell you who is authorized to approve controlled exchange? I guess it was about 4 months ago. I went down to the unit and they said they were in the process of doing a controlled exchange. And I questioned it because one, I didn't see it, and what happened? I didn't see it, and then they thought the company commander could authorize a controlled exchange. That's not how it works. Okay? Does the SOP mention controlled exchange, and what is the process? Does the unit understand how to do the controlled exchange in GCSS-A? Right? There's a whole EUM plus transaction guide on actually how to complete a controlled exchange in GCSS-A with a workflow. All right. So control exchange, okay, like I said, control exchange, removal of serviceable equipment, unserviceable, immediate reuse and restoring a like weapon system or item to FMC condition, okay? So you do a control exchange is only authorized when they're not available from SOS within the assigned priority designator, okay? A valid requisition, which means you will requisition the part. Maintenance efforts required to restore the unserviceable material involved in the condition with the MAC authorization. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's a whole bunch of policies, procedures, and rules and regulations when it comes to controlled exchange. All right, so one thing I want you to look at right here on the right-hand side. All right, if it is the only means for providing an FMC end item or weapon system to support a unit within the time frame indicated issue priority designator, right? We talked about that. But underneath number 2, approved by the first 05 commander of the owning equipment and sustainment maintenance commander. All right, controlled exchanges are not authorized on ORFs. I know a lot of us don't have ORFs, but I did have a few ORFs when I was in Korea with the MLRS systems. Just keep that in mind. So, like I said, on the left-hand side here, here's an example of a controlled exchange. All right, memo. And then also here is part of the transaction guide on actually completing a controlled exchange in GCSS-ARMY. So if you look up the transaction guide, create controlled exchange notification of work order, you can follow it right from there, step by step. If you also, I do have this on Digit, so if you want this EUM plus transaction, let me know. Check 21, commanders will conduct inspections and staff visits to determine command maintenance operations, okay? Document all faults to ensure corrective actions are taken to ensure accuracy of readiness reporting, right? So things I look for, 2 years worth of inspections present. Are they signed? Are re-inspections or get well inspections being conducted? So we may, well, one area we do well is we inspect units, but we fail to do the re-inspections or the get well inspections, okay? So we're going to look at that in a minute. So like I said, here's right out of the regulation, talks about CMDP, when you're supposed to have it, brigade and below, 6 months. Check 22, units will establish a safety program and appoint safety officers, okay, so things to look for. Appointment orders present, safety, SOP covers safety, right? So motor pool and safety, shop safety, every unit SOP will address safety. Multiple operations, field maintenance are linked with safety. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Here's an example of a maintenance NCO appointment orders. And here's an example, or part of an example of a safety portion of the SOP for maintenance. Okay, just going over the roles, responsibilities, personnel, shop areas, equipment, lifting devices, tool safety, class 3 basic load, hazard material handling. You know, you got to cover your welding, your all that stuff, right? There's a lot of stuff that you have to include when it comes to safety. So if you want to copy this in detail, like I said, this is only just a few first few pages. I think the my safety SOP is probably like 20 pages, but it covers everything you need to cover in your SOP that is a requirement. So check 23, units will ensure a quality deficiency program is in place and managers have access to the system. All right, so here's the website, www.pdrep.csd.disa.mil, right? There's things to verify. Do they understand the process? And do they have access to perform the PQDR, right? So PQDR, this is right here, is telling you, okay, so material subject, QDR, EIR, purpose of submitting is to report conditions that are a result of below standard quality and workmanship or material deficiencies, to file claims, and initiate failure credit from so forth, right? So there's a lot of stuff that I know that come in broke or damaged. The proper way to do it is to do this here, okay? So PQRs, like I said, will be submitted, investigated, and tracked. PQRs will be submitted where they are defective, non-conforming condition detected, or newly worked government-owned products. Okay, so there's a bunch of regulations to cover this. PQDR deficiency report. Okay, this is just some more information on the PQDR. Example, here's a website. So if you have someone come to this screen, it's either they are locked out or they do not have an account. Okay, so keep that in mind. If they can't access it, if they get this screen, they're full of crap. All right. So check 24, right? So this is one thing that every motor pool I go to, I don't see enough of. Okay, delivered risk assessments will be used for maintenance and driver training operations. So this is 385-10, 600-55, and 750-1. So does the unit have risk assessments posted? Do they brief their mechanics and operators? And what I normally do is I find a mechanic and ask, where's the risk assessments posted? All right, so that last one, that third thing that I asked is probably the most important. So here are some risk assessments that I did when I was a motor sergeant, when I stood up the field feeding company here on Carson. Initial final road test, I did a risk assessment for when conducting scheduled services, you know, talking about jack stands, lifting devices, environmental spills, power tools, so forth, right? Also conducting command maintenance, drivers training. I got a couple more on welding operations, battery charging, right? So anything you do, you should have a risk assessment for. Now you can have one big risk assessment and have it posted. So one thing I normally do is when I was a motor sergeant, every week on the Monday, I would brief the mechanics, hey, this is the risk assessment, this is where it is, these are the things that we can control, these are the hazards, this is how we're going to implement, right? So everybody's on page. So if you want to copy these risk assessments, just go ahead and reach out to me and I'll get them to you. Check 25, first line supervisors will ensure crews are trained to operate equipment and perform PMCS properly, right? So 750-1 and unit training calendars. So the check I do, unit training schedules and training rosters, hands-on demonstrations and instructions. So this right here, I know for my organization, for PMCS like certification, we've put that on the master driver, but we have a maintainer teach it because who knows the equipment better than a maintainer, right? So we have a bunch of tests that we do and so forth. So if you want a copy of like a PMCS certification test, let me know. I can get that to you as well. Check 26, maintenance operations such as motor stable services, sustainment training, PMCS will be annotated on the training schedules, okay? So here's a couple different training schedules here. So if you look, you know, you got command maintenance. Like I showed you in the previous one, they had a couple services on there. So yeah, so you're gonna look at command maintenance. Are they doing any low density training? Do they have a maintenance meeting? So forth. Anything that's maintenance related, right, should be on here. including your services, and your 60-day dispatches, which we seem to be struggling with. Check 27, commanders will utilize external maintenance training resources, right? So list external maintenance POC phone numbers, what resources do they use, TACOM, Comet, etc. Are POCs posted, right? So you don't have to have it posted on the wall, but can you quickly reference who I need to contact for external maintenance training and support? So here you go. Commanders maintenance training, okay, analyze, develop, train leaders, train first line leaders. This is the commanders maintenance training. Okay, these are considered to improve your maintenance training and your overall maintenance programs. And this is DAPAM 750-3, paragraph 5-5. Checks 28-29, okay. Units will have a current ARMS account established and ensure all offices, shops, and functional areas they inspect use ARMS, okay. So ensure there's an approved oral, right? So I can't tell you how many units think that they're slick and they just take someone else's oral and put it on the side of their filing cabinet and so forth, right? Go in the system, verify that they have a valid account for ARMS and so forth, all right? So there you go. Here's 25-400-2. Okay, talks about this. All right, record management officers and officials. Okay, will be appointed in writing, so forth. Another office role. This is just an example here of orals prepared and all that. Like I said, we're gonna get further into ARMS in about a couple weeks. So here's the ARMS website. All right, so make sure they can log in. They drop down and so forth, right? So if you look here, when you log in, it'll tell you it's oral if it's approved. If it's draft, it's pending approval, or if they don't have one. All right, so keep that in mind. That's how you can tell if the unit truly has a approved oral. So approved records, like I said, this is just another example. These are all the records that they are approved to have under their oral. All right, so here's an example of the ARMS appointment MFR. All right. Check 30, okay, records will be established, labeled, and contained in records filed labels in accordance with ARMS. All right, use a uniform system of label placement. Are records filed correctly and are active and historical records kept separate? Okay, so their filing cabinets and all should be labeled correctly. So labeling procedures, okay, we're not going to go too far to that, but here's an example of ARM file examples. All right, so as you see, they have all their binders labeled with the ARMS label. They have all their drawers labeled. For example, if you look to the right-hand side, 500 Alpha through 600 Echo. These are all 2020. These pictures were taken in 2021, but the unit has updated to 2022, right? So records 500 Alpha through 600 Echo are kept in here, and that's medical through personnel, right? That's good. That is awesome, right? They got the active label. They got it going on. All right, so if you look, there's our uniform ARMS labels. Not too bad. You can use a little bit more work, but we're getting there, right? There's some more examples of the ARMS labels. Here's a copy of some of their binders on how they put the ARMS labels in and how it talks, external SOPs, LRC, SOP 247, everything, TMD, tool room, all their programs they have in binders, right? So if you keep all your records in a binder, even though in your filing cabinet, you should have the piece of paper, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, to say, hey, this record is kept here. So let's talk about file setup, right? Like I said, we're just briefly going to hit on ARMS. I could talk ARMS for hours, but we're not going to do that tonight. So, okay, so we fall under 3 core, and this is what my common team has used to train me in the ARMS world. So you have your guide card, you got your dummy folder and your folder, right? So if you look at the first folder here, it'd be 600 manpower, 600 manpower, and then your folders or your mechanics or personnel behind will be 600 Delta Bill, 600 Delta Fred, 600 Delta George, all right? Just keep that in mind. So here's the cross reference I was talking about, which was DA Form 1613. So if you keep your folders, such as your publications or something somewhere else on a desktop or somewhere, you're going to use this form here to tell where that record is located. And this is just an example of the filing cabinet, active, inactive, what's in the files, your FOUO, your unaccompanied access, your oral, so forth, right? So that's just an example of how we look. So here's just an example on how you can set it up. So all binder labels list beginning and ending in binder and the file number, right? So unit maintenance SOT, battalion maintenance SOP. So if you want a copy of all these ARMS binder labels, just reach out to me. I can get these to you. You just have to change probably some of the wording, but they'll print out right in PowerPoint for you, and you can just put them right in your binders. But maintenance management, there's all your regulations and so forth, right? Tool room, CPAC, desktop references, maintenance management, so forth. You can go on and on and on. One thing I know, when I go into a CMDP inspection, if the unit looks squared away, I normally don't dig as much. I mean, I still dig, but presentation is everything, okay? Keep that in mind. If you want some of this stuff here, just let me know. So that's part 2 of the general maintenance management operations, going over checks 16 through 30. So we have one more video left in this, and then we'll be going on to our shop operations checks and procedures and so forth, right? So like I said, at any point you want any of these resources in these videos, just reach out to me and I'll get them to you as soon as possible. Hope you're enjoying the series so far. Like I said, I can't tell you the amount of support that I've had over the series. I'll see you in the next video, and as always, go Ordnance. Part 3 of our general maintenance management checks. We're going to check on 31 through 39. This is part of the CMDP series, and I think we're on part 9 of that series. So I hope you've liked the last 2 videos. Like I said, general maintenance management operations checks, and here we are, the final video, right? So I hope this information is helpful. Like I said, in any point in the series or any of my previous videos, any material resources you want or need, reach out to me through email and I will get you those, all right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the final portion, part 3 of our general maintenance management operation checks. By the way, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you all for your support. All right, so we're on our final part, checks 31 through 39 here, right? So let's start off with check 31. Active files will be separated from inactive files. So if you haven't had a chance, go back and watch the previous video. We briefly touched on ARMS, and we will, like I said, do a separate series on ARM files, okay? So I spot check the files, make sure that they're active or inactive. So, you know, they're separated and so forth. So disposition, like I said, make sure that all disposition codes on your ARM files and your labels are being kept in the right time frames and being destroyed the way they're supposed to be destroyed. Check 32, file cutoff, new files will be created for the current year disposition instructions. Like I said, AR 25-400-2, paragraph 2-1, okay? So like I said, I'm just going to spot check files. So here it is right here, talking about the proponents, about the records and how to retain and so forth. All right. So like I said, if you want to reference this is 2-1, 25-400-2. 33. Okay. Commanders will appoint a primary and secondary unit records manager. Okay. So I spot check the files and make sure the appointment orders are correct, are current, and so forth, and they are signed. So here's an example, like I said, of the ARMS appointment orders. All right. Pretty self-explanatory. If you want a copy of this, please let me know. Check 34, units will properly account for man hours and lists, 750-1, 4-14, 4-15, and 16, and also T code iWhiskey 47 to view man hours by personnel. Okay, so things I look for during this check is I spot check. I log into GCSS-Army. I use the T code iWhiskey 47. Are they using timesheets? And can they log into card and pull reports? Okay, do they know how to pull their man hour utilization reports? So Here's 4-14 where it talks about man hours. So for military manpower, just right here, number 1, the standard utilization rate is 50%, but the goal is 75%. Okay, so keep that in mind. 4-15 goes a little more in depth, talks about how to account. 4-16, okay. Here's I Whiskey 47T code. I'm going to do a separate YouTube video, I think, on actually how to do this video. But here you go. It's just you completed confirmations. You can pull it up. Like you see, you're going to have names and personnel numbers. I blocked all that, but you're able to look at the amount of hours that they are accounting for, right? And all you have to do from this screen, if you click on the order number, right, it'll tell you, okay, air compressor troubleshooting, okay, 8 hours is what's forecast and accumulated work. Another example here, a biannual service took 15 hours. All right, so they're accounting for their hours. So this man-hour timesheet here. So I had a chief that I work with is pretty knowledgeable when it comes to man hours. So in order to track better open work order request man hours, he added a spot on the bottom of the accounting worksheet. Use the sheet daily, weekly in order to track. So the bottom of the sheet he did for direct hours, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Friday, the work order number, the hours, so forth. All right, he has his mechanics turning this into him. So if you want a copy of this, please let me know because I can share this. DAPM 70-A paragraph 3-2, right? Units reporting monthly or lines supporting correctly. You should always be checking that. Our readiness posture reports being filed and assigned by the commander, right? So if you remember in the old days, we'd have to come in on a Saturday or Sunday, whatever day it fell on, and did the AMS and all that stuff, right? So we don't do that anymore, but we can pull the reports. So like I said, just keep in mind, you know, for reporting procedures, we keep that. Your maintenance control officer will. So your maintenance control officer is responsible for this. So here's just an example. GCSS-A readiness posture report. Okay, so you can pull right from here. Now, if you go to ASIP, you can go to ASIP, and then you click on the little documents button, and then it'll actually do the old style here that we used to do. So basically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna put in your force element, the month, right? You'll click which one you want, and then from here it'll talk about your ERC A, ERC Ps, you know, okay, on hand exemptions, the FMC percentage rate, your NMCS, which is your non-mission capable supply, and your non-mission capable maintenance. Okay, so like I said, it's pretty easy. And then here, just for an example, every month is supposed to be filed and signed, right? So make sure they're filed and signed. Now this comes extremely important, especially going for the AMI, because a lot of times they want your readiness posture reports or another report to show that you are actually tracking your operational readiness. And for all you card users out there, this is an awesome tool. Card equipment, okay? So like I said, it'll break all this down for you. This is pretty cool. I like card. Check 36, okay? Units will adjust or align force structure. Changes occur, okay? Is the unit aligned correctly? Now you can go to GCSS-A, you can check that. I'm not going to talk too much on that because we should all be aligned. You'll know if you're not, all right? So, but if you do want to learn more, 700-38, paragraph 2-4 and 2-5, all right? 37, units request exemptions, okay, from reporting AMIS data in advance, okay? So we really should not have to be filed for any exceptions, all right? It's just a report we pull from GARMY here. So the last two checks, Army Maintenance Organizations Turnaround Time, TAT, okay, 750-1, 3-6, and 750-1, 4-4, okay? Commanders review metrics for TAT and maintenance priority designator category, okay? So I spot check these files, all right? So if you look at 3-6, right, it'll tell you everything you're supposed to do, okay? Provide policy guidance in these areas. And there's a formula, right? The TAT time, date of acceptance of work orders, okay? So TAT standard, okay? So 5 days for priorities 01 through 03. 04 to 08, 8 days, 9 to 15, 30 days, right? So keep that in mind. So there's a report, especially, you know, with our SMC that we have, the services of the division, we pull their TAT times all the time. Like I said, managing battalion company maintenance programs successfully. Like I said, we must ensure maintenance records are forwarded, reduced, and kept on file and maintained. Like I said, here's another 750-1 DA PAM where it talks about the turnaround time, what it is. Organizations will follow the applicable procedures, managing historical maintenance records, the two primary locations for unit records. So the first location is with the unit, which is your hard records, and then electronic files. So one thing I do, like I said, anytime a unit does want a service or completes a service, I have them upload and attach it to the work orders in GCSS-ARMY, so it's always there. And it comes in handy too when you're trying to like lateral transfer a piece of equipment to a unit. All the records are there for them. So that is the final check for the general maintenance management operations. Okay, so this was a huge three-part series on this portion. So our next portion of the CMDP series, we're going to go into shop operations. That'll probably be a 2-3-part series as well. So I hope you like the videos. I hope you like the videos, video series so far. Like I said, if you want any of these materials that I have, just reach out to me and I'll get them to you. The whole goal is to just get some knowledge out there, give you guys some tools and things you can use to be successful. You know, maintenance is a priority. Unfortunately, I think maintenance has been taking a back burn probably in the last 2-3 years. And seems like recently in the last couple months, my division is starting to see that, hey, maintenance drives everything. It drives your training, it drives everything, right? So there's a huge focus on maintenance, which is awesome. I love maintenance. So I hope you like this video. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, go Ordnance.